Hi there. For this video, we'll be discussing about the slope, or more specifically, we'll be talking about the general idea and concept about it, as well as how to get the slope of a line, particularly given 2 points. So for our question of the day, given this line out here, a nice question to ask is, how much does y change as x changes? And more importantly, or more specifically, how do we measure and quantify this change? So the answer to this is with the use of the slope. So just to illustrate what we mean by the change in y as x changes, for instance, let's choose a point around here and set this to be y, x. So this point will be the ordered pair x and y. And if we observe the change out here, let's use a different color. So as x sub 1 goes to x, then the change in y is this one. So y increases by this. But as x sub 1 goes to x sub 2, the change in y is larger. So why is that? So this is something that we can quantify or measure using the slope. So the slope is a measure of the steepness or the inclination of a line. So it is like steepness is like the change from, or the rise from, a high point to a low point and vice versa. And inclination is like the inclinedness. So it's right here, incline. Or it's like the slantness of a line. The formula is usually given by this out here, or it is the change in y over the change in x. We usually denote this as the rise over the run. So as you can see, by the formula itself, it is clear that this is a ratio of the change in y and in the change in x. So as y changes, x changes, something like that. Now given 2 points, so let's focus our eyes on this figure. So given 2 points, our change in x out here is over here, and our change in y is over here. Or essentially, this is the change in x and the change in y respectively, since these are the distances that x sub 1 goes to x sub 2 and y sub 1 goes to y sub 2 respectively. So with this in mind, note that the change in x rather, is simply given by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Indeed, let's have a scratch work out here. If we add x sub 1 plus the change in x, we know that we must arrive at x sub 2. Using this out here, then we have x sub 1 plus x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Cancelling out the x sub 1's out here will give us x sub 2, which matches what we want. So that is the change in x. With similar reasoning, the change in y is given by y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So applying this to our formula, the change in y is given by y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over the change in x is given by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And this is the formula that we'll be using later on in solving for the slope given 2 points. Also, take note that, let's just put it out here as a remark. We can also consider the formula given by y sub 1 minus y sub 2 all over x sub 1 minus x sub 2. So basically, we can interchange these as well as in the denominator. And why is that? Well, y sub 1 minus y sub 2 also represents the change in y, and so is x sub 1 minus x sub 2. It also represents the change in x, but it's like in a reversed mode. And despite that, despite reversing the roles, we'll still obtain the same answer since algebraically, if we manipulate this one, note that we can write the numerator as negative y sub 2 plus y sub 1 all over. The denominator is negative times negative x sub 2 plus x sub 1. So it's like I factored out the negative. Then we can cancel out the negative signs out here, and reversing this will obtain this. There. So these are the two formulas that we'll be using, or actually we can just focus on using one, depends on what you like, and we'll be using these in our examples later. So just a last note before we try out some examples. Another thing to think about is, what is the use of slope? Well, the slope has a lot of applications, like in calculus, in physics, in engineering, in economics, and even in geometry. So that's just something to think about, and a good motivation on why we study this topic. So now let's try to work on some examples. So in this first example, our goal is to find the slope of the line passing through the point A given by the ordered pair 1, 2, and B given by the ordered pair 2, 4. So the first thing that we can do here is we first set our x sub 1's and y sub 1's, as well as x sub 2's and y sub 2's. So we can set this one to be x sub 1, this to be y sub 1, this to be x sub 2, and this to be y sub 2. So as you can observe, the strategy out here is also similar to how we get the length and the midpoint of given 2 points. the first key is to set x sub 1's, the x's rather, and the y's, and make sure not to interchange any of it. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you may check out my previous videos on it, probably linked somewhere around this video. And so yeah, let's now try to apply the given formula. So again, recall that the slope is given by the change in y over the change in x. Also, just a trivia, if you're confused why we are using m, there isn't really any concrete answer on why m represented the slope, but I think it was found in some texts that its first use is in this formula. So this is a slope-intercept formula, wherein this represents the slope, but there isn't really any clear or definite reason as to why. But ever since then, m has been used to denote the slope of a line. So I think this is a overreach already, so yeah, let's go back to the lesson. So going back, the change in y is given by y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over the change in x is given by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Applying what we have set above, then we have here y sub 2 is given by 4 minus y sub 1 is given by 2 over x sub 2 is given by 2 and x sub 1 is given by 1. So this simplifies to 4 minus 2 is 2 and 2 minus 1 is 1. So our answer for this is 2. So the slope of this line is 2. But let's move this one out here. Let's box it so we don't forget it. And let's try to illustrate the idea on how, or rather the significance of this slope. So what this tells us is that 2 changes in y as 1 change in x. Or let's write this out much better. 2 changes in y is equal to 1 change in x. So to illustrate this one, if we observe the points out here from x sub 1 to x sub 2, so we have x sub 1 to x sub 2, that is given by 1 to 2. So the distance here is, distance is 1 unit. On the other hand, from y sub 1 to y sub 2, then we have y sub 1 to y sub 2. So we have here 2 goes to 4. So the distance of this is 2 units. So as you can see here, the change in x, that is only 1, is equal to 2 changes in y. So something like that. So that is how the slope is represented, or that is the significance of the slope. So it's not just some random value that we calculate for fun, but rather it has a lot of meaning and significance. Let's have this one last example. So in here we are tasked to find the slope of the line containing the points C and D, which is the ordered pair -1 and 1, as well as 4 and 5 respectively. So again, by similar process, we first set the x's and the y's. So we have here x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, and y sub 2. This time, let's use the formula, which is given by, let's first write change in y over change in x, and this one is equal to y sub 1 minus y sub 2 over x sub 1 minus x sub 2. So the formula that I use here is the remark formula. So let's note that one. Remark formula. So you can verify that by using the original formula that we have, the answer will be same for this one. So we have here y sub 1 is given by 1 minus y sub 2 is given by 5 all over x sub 1 is given by negative 1 minus x sub 2 is given by 4. So this simplifies to, in the numerator we have negative 4, and in the denominator we have negative 5. Yep. So this will give us, cancelling out the negatives, so let's cancel that one. This will give us 4 over 5. And this out here is the answer for this problem. So again, what this means is that, it's right here, there's a note. 4 over 5 changes in y. Let's just use this symbol. 4 over 5 changes in y is equal to 1 change in x. Something like this. I won't represent it anymore, or I won't show it anymore like how I did a while ago, wherein I go from x sub 1 to x sub 2, as well as y sub 1 to y sub 2. You can do that on your own and verify that this idea is true. Now here is an exercise that you can work on, as I practice for this lesson. So in here, given m equals 3 over 4, this one out here represents the slope, to clarify. And the points, x and 23 over 4, as well as 2 over 5. Your goal is to find the value of x. So the x out here is this missing x coordinate of the first point. So essentially, this is a different type of problem from what we had a while ago, but the process is the same. You just need to take note of the formula, which is the change in y over the change in x, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x. But instead of finding m, we are given with m. So this one is given. Our problem is to find the x. So say if that's this one, then this is our goal to find. So you will just be needing to use some some linear equation skills in finding the value of x. So you may comment down below your answer if you got one, or your solution if you're stuck with in solving this one. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one, and feel free to comment down below any comments, suggestions, and recommendations that you have for our future videos in this channel. So that's it, and that is all for this video.